Okay, and Doreen, you need to make me host again then so I can turn the chat on and off.
Okay, it's still loading. YouTube's loading. No, this is
So
where I
I'm
made
going
the
live, you
mistake,
guys.
right?
Yeah, close that window.
Close this
Yeah,
window.
and I'm no longer host or co-host.
Okay, wait a second. I'll get you there. Give me a minute. So I'm making you host, Phil.
Make sure you
It doesn't matter. Okay, let's let people in.
Phil, your host.
All right, I just admitted all.
I need my screen sharing, Phil.
Okay,
It's on.
and I'm going to make you host again.
Yes, thank you. And then I'll make you co-host. I think I'm
I'll
Jim.
stick around downstairs for
Okay.
a minute
Thank you.
and then.
I appreciate it.
Welcome.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Phil Herman, and I'm superintendent of Hudson City Schools, and thank you for joining us this morning for the Hudson Virtual Learning Program informational Zoom session. This is our second one. We did one last night, and we're having another one here this morning. It's certainly been a busy week, as we know that we've shared a lot of information about return to school plans, and everyone is taking time to process that information and ask their questions and try to gather information to make good decisions for your children. And that's really the point of today, is to try to provide additional information about the Hudson Virtual Learning Program so that each of you can make good decisions for your own children. This morning, Doreen Osmond, our assistant superintendent, is going to give an overview of the Hudson Virtual Learning Program. And then following that, we will open the chat and you can submit questions and we'll take some Q&A. And we're going to look at those questions and we're going to be trying to answer the broad questions that apply to many people. If you have very specific questions and we don't get to them today, please make sure that you submit them to the hudsonready@hudson.k12.oh.us email, and we will get back to you. Plus, we'll be posting questions and answers on a frequently asked questions page on the website as well. So we'll cover as much as we can today, but there are a couple avenues to get additional questions answered for you. We know that in the virtual learning program, there are some things that we have buttoned up and we know the detailed answers to, so we'll be able to share a lot of that with you. We also know that there are some decisions yet to be made, and we'll try to explain those and explain when those decisions would be made. There are a few components that really won't be made until we know how many students are in the program, and so we'll try to highlight those too, because in that situation, you might not have the detailed answer until after we know how many students are enrolled. And so we understand that that's a challenge for you as parents. Doreen Osmond is our assistant superintendent. She has been an educator for 31 years. And during that period of time, she has been a teacher, a principal, a director of curriculum and instruction, and assistant superintendent. And she is really an expert in curriculum and instruction. She's an expert in teaching pedagogy. And I learn from her every day. It is a pleasure to work by her side, not only because of what I learned from her about academic instruction, but also because of what she demonstrates about leading in education and teaching children with heart and with passion. And so it's a pleasure to have her. She's going to walk through overview of the Hudson Virtual Learning Program. And then when she's done with that, again, we'll open up the chat. You can start submitting questions and we'll cover as many of them as we can in just about an hour worth of time. With that, I'll turn things over to Doreen Osmond.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. I appreciate the kind words and the introduction. I am just about to share my screen and present. Go to a presentation mode. So thank you very much. Thank you to all the parents, and I do see some students here. There we go. I do see some students here, so hopefully I am able to provide information for you so you can learn more about the virtual learning option. And I just move my screen around. Okay, the virtual learning option. Thank you, Phil, for your kind introduction, but also for your leadership and your guidance throughout the years, but especially since March. You always pushed our team to be better, to think deeper, and always challenge the thinking so we can get to the best place for our students. I also want to take a moment to thank our Board of Education. They have been with us side by side, making sure that we are examining our processes before recommendation is made. I want to thank our parents and our teachers and our staff members, and especially our students. There have been so many demonstrations of resilience and gratitude. It is truly a pleasure and an honor to be here in the Hudson school community. So today I'm going to talk about 35 minutes. We will have some time, 25 minutes or so, for question and answers. And like Mr. Herman just said, we probably won't get to all of the answers. We encourage you to use the Hudson Ready at K-12 at Hudson Ready at hudson.k12.oh.us. It's at the end of the presentation also. So before I begin, every student, every family has their own story. They have their own lens, and they have their own history. They have their own family concerns and joys. It doesn't matter. But as we develop these plans, we try to keep in mind that student and each student and their experience that they have with the Hudson schools. We wanted you to be informed so you can make a decision. We don't have all the answers, and some things are going to be left until we have full enrollment, until we have an idea of the scale. So today's session will cover some of our background and logistics, the review of the options, either option 1 or option 2. I'm going to go over the program overview. What does it look like? I call it a day in the life of a student. We want to make sure we're focusing on our students, and then highlight some of the next steps, including timeline and more information generally about the virtual learning option. So what is the purpose of this option, of the virtual learning option? From our survey, we know that there are families that are not going to send their students to school for a variety of reasons. So we needed to design an option where families or students could be home right from the beginning, 100% of the time, and there's consistency. You know what each day is going to bring. And this is what, if you're looking for that kind of consistency, then this is maybe an option for you. There's a variety of reasons families may choose this. There could be an illness. It could be people that are in the household that you take care of. Whatever the reason for not being comfortable for option 1, this is a viable option that we are hopefully that we will be presenting to you. Just a review, Mr. Herman presented to the Board of Education last Monday, a few days ago actually, and talked about options 1 and option 2. So in option 1, I just want to do a quick review. All students are all in every day. As we were creating these options, we wanted to make sure that if possible, we wanted our students in school as much as possible, as safely as possible, considering the wellness and the safety and wellness. And what I mean by that is not only health wellness, but mental wellness too. And we knew we had to be nimble. We talked about that a lot. Being nimble, being able to live within situations where we could be all in, or we could be hybrid, or we have to be remote like we were in the spring. So hybrid, the second part of option 1 is 50% of our students are in school and 50% are at home, and it's an every other day model with alternating Fridays. And then if we have to go to remote learning 2.0, we learned a lot of lessons this spring. Your feedback, our students' feedback, our parents' feedback, and our teachers' feedback about remote learning in April and May. We shaped a lot of our programming based on that feedback and things that we continue to learn. And then we have option 2. And option 2 is our Hudson virtual learning option. And that is 100% online for either a semester, and we'll talk about those timelines later, or a trimester. The virtual learning experience. I'm going to talk about what VLO is and what VLO is not. We want to partner with families and to create a good and sound and great learning experience as possible as we are in these, I hate the term unprecedented times, but really that's what they are. And we want to make sure that we are trying to explain this to the best of our ability. We want to create the best learning experiences, but we cannot replicate our learning experiences that we have in our schools. It's different. Students will be at home. Students in kindergarten and 5th grade will not experience the exact same thing as they did last year at the beginning of the year or prior years. They won't experience the same things that they experienced in the spring from March until May. It's different. We cannot replicate, we cannot duplicate what we have or what we think of as school. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some specialized courses that are not able to be replicated or duplicated in a virtual learning environment. But I'm going to talk about what can be done and how we can deliver sound instruction and sound learning for our students. So kindergarten and 5th grade through 5th grade, I said just now that it looks different. It looks different than middle school and high school. So one of the reasons it looks a little bit differently is because our kindergarten through 5th grade students, they typically have 1 or 2 teachers. They are all using the same curriculum. So our elementary families that have been with us, we use Bridges for our math resources, our math textbook. Their teachers are following the same lesson, pretty much at the same pace. And that's the same for reading and writing. They have units of study for Teachers College, and we're following that same pace along the way. One of the things from the survey in the spring was parents were asking for consistency. And so we really worked on that over the summer, these past months. We have common pacing. So what is that? What is common pacing? Common pacing is having that lesson across the grade levels in kindergarten through 5th grade at a common time or a common day. Our guideline is that students or teachers in grades K through 5 will follow a common pacing per week. We know there are some classes and sometimes students need a little bit more enrichment, and so they can speed up a little bit. And sometimes there are lessons and concepts for some students and some classes that they need to slow down a little bit. But by per week, all kindergarten and through 5th grade classes, no matter where they reside, whether it's all in, hybrid, remote 2.0, or virtual, will be on the same learning content level. That's really important. So this is why we're able to do this. This is why we're able to provide Hudson teachers, Hudson elementary teachers, our own teachers, provide them, they will be teaching the learning 2.0 or classes 2.0. They'll be assigned a teacher, assigned a class. Students will meet with their virtual teacher daily. And the primary focus, especially in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, will be reading, writing, phonics, and mathematics, with folding in science and social studies. 4th and 5th grade, the same thing, except not so much in phonics, but there'll be work in vocabulary, or what we like to call word work. Google Classroom will be utilized. We heard from our families again in the spring, a lot of emails, especially in kindergarten through 2nd grade. That's how we set it up. Everybody, no matter what option you're in, everybody will be using Google Classroom. Assignments will be posted, and assignments will be turned in Google Classroom also. Art, music, and physical education. The frequency and method of instruction of these classes will depend on the scale of students enrolled in the virtual learning option. We do feel that we will be able to deliver these specials. We just don't know to the extent of those specials and what that will look like. Another thing parents had provided feedback on is what we need a schedule. We need some kind of schedule to follow. And what does that look like? And we needed to do a better job of helping parents establish that schedule. Having 2 of my own children at home working, it was about a schedule. They did not like that I was getting them up at that time. But they were up every day at a certain time. They knew my morning meeting was over at 8:30 and it was time for them to get up and get to work. So whatever works for your family. This is a sample K-5 student schedule. It will look similar, but it is not the exact schedule. We had some questions last night about, is it set? So this is only for really to provide a sample of what it could look like. So the Hudson teacher will always start with a morning meeting, a class message, and that will be in a Zoom session. We want our students to feel connected. That will be time that our students and the teacher and the students with each other will have some time together, check in socially, emotionally, and then there'll be after in that chunk of 2-hour chunk of time, students will work on the lesson that is presented, and sometimes that lesson will be presented in a Google Classroom where students may watch it, and then this teacher is spending time interacting with the content. There'll be small group work, there'll be breakout rooms, there'll be time for independent work, and this also individualized, specialized instruction for students with disability will be folded in within that time. And we'll talk a little bit more in depth about our students with disabilities. There'll be lunch and free time, and then there'll be another 2-hour session. And that will be one-to-one group work with reading and writing and phonics and mathematics, and again, folding in science and social studies. And this does include specialized instruction in a Zoom session in a synchronous environment for our students with disabilities. And then we also heard that sometimes students need some one-on-one time or maybe 2-on-1 time with their teacher. And this is those office hours. And also this is a time where parents can reach out to our teachers if you need time to talk to them with your child or without your child. And again, this is another time, this 2 to 3 o'clock time is another time where special education and related services can be delivered. And then on the side, I have potentially flex in those unified arts classes. So art, music, and phys ed. Our unified arts teachers did an amazing job over the summer. I saw drums in a cul-de-sac playing music, and it was so many examples of art and phys ed and the different challenges that our elementary folks did was amazing. And we know that's important. So we are continuing to develop that. Before we transition into exactly what middle school and high school looks like, I want to talk to you a little bit about Apex and what Apex is. Apex is our online provider, and it's online curriculum provider. It's content-based, so it's based on the Ohio Learning Standards, which is required by all schools in Ohio. It is a self-paced program. So a student might be in, let's say, 6th grade language arts or world history or honors world history at the high school. It is a self-paced, so there's content that's put up. So it might be reading a chapter, answering some questions. There may be some writing that needs to be submitted, but it is self-paced. There is no teacher teaching the actual content. So it is different, and we've had students using Apex for 10 years. Our history with Apex, we use it for summer health. Summer health is a way where many of our students take advantage of getting their health credit through summer school, so they can free up a study hall, or because they're doubling up on some classes, and those are more high school kids. Students who can't fit a class, a graduation requirement class into their schedule because they may be taking college credit plus at Kent, or they may be in our 6th district compact in our college career and technical programs. Some students can't come to school due to illness, and some students just need a different option. So we've had a sound history with Apex for over 10 years. There's a wide variety of courses, including AP that is College Board approved. And there's also some intervention programming if available if families and if IEP teams choose to access it. It's not a requirement though. Our counselors will schedule students into classes that reflect their current courses. There were some great questions last night. So the courses aren't necessarily going to exactly match what we have in our schools. We offer many, many electives, and we will try to mirror, if it's an art elective, we'll try to have it, there are art electives in the Apex programming and catalog. So that's the work of the counselors and the student and the family. And we always want to give a heads up or give some call attention to potential D1 and D2 athletes will especially want to work with your school counselor for the high school credit courses. NCAA, not all of our classes at the high school right now are NCAA approved, especially the electives. And we just want to make sure that if your student or if you are a D1 or D2 potential athlete, please work with your counselor as always, not just with Apex, but whatever course you take. So let's focus a day in the life of a middle school student. Students are going to work with their counselor to match their current schedule with Apex online course offerings. Students will also work will work self-paced independently on their coursework through Apex. All students in the virtual learning option will be assigned a middle school team. So the middle school is amazing, first of all, the teams and the teachers there, but that team aspect is there are four or five teachers on a team that are focused on about anywhere from 110 to 120 kids. And they have the same teachers, that whole pot of kids have the same teachers. We want to make sure we're not losing that completely. So students in 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade who are choosing on virtual learning option will be assigned to a team. And every week, at least once a week, students will be touching base with the teacher, at least one teacher on the team. And so they are field connected to their school community. The teacher is not teaching the class. He or she is not delivering content during that check-in. A check-in is really a check-in how engaged the student has been. Are they following the pacing? And really that connection, working on that connection. So the art, music, and physical education, we are still working on the frequency and the method of instruction for these classes. It just depends on the scale of the number of students that will be in our virtual learning option. Apex courses align with our Ohio curriculum. One of the questions I want to address now is, what if we choose for a semester, because 6 through 12 are semesters, what if we want our student to come back January 24th? What will that look like? We have for several of the courses pacing, because we have students that may be ill and they're coming back to the high school especially. So we have, where is that semester break off? And we try to align that. Not every course is going to align perfectly with the semester, but we are working on making sure that is a coordinated effort. Again, here's the sample schedule. And this is, since it's self-paced, there's no teacher saying, okay, we're going to start our language arts class. This is self-paced. How your student and you, how your child and you make a schedule is totally dependent on you. I have just done a sample schedule. You'll see a different sample schedule for high school. But expect to have your student engaged in their class probably 4 to 5 hours a day. Using the Apex curriculum. Some days are going to be shorter, some days are going to be a little bit longer. It just depends on the content and where they are. So in middle school, I've designed an hour and a half for English language arts. There's a lot of reading and there's a lot of writing in that course. So just scheduling it in your head a little bit longer. Math, Apex Math, Apex Science, and then lunch and free time, and then Apex Social Studies. And then somewhere in between 2 or 3 o'clock in the, typically, we think that that team check-in will be scheduled by the middle school teacher. And again, it is a check-in. If they need some academic help, because there's the 4 core subjects are, that's art, I'm sorry, art is a core subject, but for academic cores are social studies, science, language arts, and mathematics. There could be some opportunity for a check-in to provide some support during that time. But again, it is not to teach the class. Here are the Apex courses for the middle school. You can see we have English 6, 7, 8, Math 6, 7, 8, Algebra 1, Honors Geometry, Science, and then the Social Studies areas. I have Algebra 1 and Honors Geometry asterisk because those are current classes in our middle school, and they're for high school credit. Middle school Apex does have elective courses, college and career preparation, art appreciation, and 3D animation. So we wanted to be able to offer some electives for the middle school schedule and for middle school students. So we're going to move on to the high school. High school is a little bit different because high school doesn't have communities. They have a plethora of courses. I was trying to work out with our one of our high school unit principals, and we were trying to count how many courses. We have over 150 courses and with the different levels. So that is another reason that it would be really hard to schedule this high school schedule like an elementary type schedule that I just talked about. Again, the Apex is self-paced. We will match or mirror to the best of our ability the current high school schedule that your student has. Students, again, will work independently on their coursework through Apex. And then students will be assigned a high school teacher. They'll be assigned a person, their person, that they're going to touch base with. That person will look at their progress. They'll look at how the work completion is going. And then also we at the high school have a math lab and a writing lab. And those are available to any student in virtual learning option. And to be able to schedule a time. So if you need extra help with writing, or if you need some extra help with math, a mathematical concept, there is a high school teacher there. That's where you get the intervention. That's where you would get the help that you need. But it would be more of, I tried this, I'm not getting it. It's not, hey, can you work out this? Can you teach me this lesson in Apex? It would be working on the work. A high school teacher will meet synchronously to monitor progress and check in with students weekly. That's their person. And these Zoom sessions are required. The middle school Zoom sessions are required also. It will be part of how we take attendance. And again, electives are something that we are working out. And we are hopeful that we will be able to provide some kind of programming for electives for our high school students also. And this is a sample schedule for our high school people. And again, I didn't put times on this one. This is just another way to do your schedule at home. If you're choosing VLO, on an hour for Apex Language Arts, Apex Math, Apex Science, lunch, free time. We need to make sure our kids are having free time, and Apex Social Studies, and then an elective. You want to make sure that you have a full schedule because it could impact eligibility for athletics and extracurriculars and co-curriculars. And then that teacher check-in time to monitor progress on Apex and check that piece of check-in will be determined once we have a class list. We create a class list and assign a teacher. Apex courses at the high school, actually both high school and middle school, are available online. So you would go to our main website, go under For Families, and then hover, and it'll say Apex course listings. And there is a long list of high school courses for students to choose from. Probably by Monday, you'll be able to click on that course and you'll see all the units. You'll get a little bit more understanding, or at least some more detail on what that course is. And again, it's self-paced, and the students will be assigned to a high school teacher. Special education and related services. What does this look like? So again, families choosing the virtual learning option, the gen ed curriculum, the general education curriculum, the Ohio content standards will be delivered through the Apex platform. There will be, every student with a disability will have a case manager. Those case managers will work with families and the team to develop a learning plan, a personalized learning plan for remote learning. It is based on the IEP and prioritization of things, goals and objectives. Elementary, this is what an elementary schedule would look like. Elementary school students would follow the gen ed classroom schedule, and the case manager would schedule his or her time, that language arts time, that math time, speech and language, whatever that service is, those specialized minutes would be within that setting. Remember, I said in elementary, there's independent work time that could potentially be coordinated with the classroom teacher and the case manager. And all of our case managers for our students with disabilities and virtual learning option are Hudson teachers. There are people there who are wonderful, by the way. And then middle school and high school, same thing, assigned to a case manager. And then that time will also be scheduled. It'll be consistent because case managers will have students in school serving option 1 and serving option 2, most likely. So, and then specialized instruction, I think I did all that. Assigned case managers, specialized instruction will still be delivered along with related services. Gifted education. This has been a topic on our on the Hudson Ready email that we made available on Monday for families to ask questions. We tried to incorporate those questions that needed to be answered. Gifted education was part of it. So gifted services start in grade 3, and they are formalized through grade 8. This is something we are continuing to refine. Students in grade 3 through 5 in tier 1 service, those are the enriched language arts students, the students that are serviced by a gifted intervention specialist will have at least one Zoom session a week with a gifted intervention specialist. Students in grades 3 through 5 in tiers 1 and 2, in tiers 2 and 3, those are the students that are clustered together, that lessons are differentiated. That will continue also through the classroom teacher, and our GIS, our gifted intervention specialists, will continue to work with the teachers in virtual learning to be able to help them differentiate those lessons and assignments. Math acceleration and placement, this is mostly a middle school. There are some 5th graders this applies to, will continue. So if you have a student in 7th grade and they're scheduled to take Algebra 1 for high school credit next year, then we'll put that student will be placed in Algebra 1 on Apex. Enriched language arts for grades 6 through 8 at this time is not available through virtual learning. So unified arts, world languages, electives, and extracurriculars. We are still working on continuing to work on the logistics of art, music, phys ed, and other electives. We know that electives a lot of times are the things that are specialized for our students. They connect and they're vital to our programming, and we are continuing to work that out. Specialized courses at the high school cannot be replicated or duplicated through the virtual learning options. So classes like New Dimensions, Service Learning, H2BE, those, you won't find them in Apex. And as much as that hurts to say that, but it's just not possible. And then students in VLO can participate in athletics, extracurriculars, and other after-school functions in accordance with the same eligibility and health guidelines required for all students in our district. So if you have a student in VLO that still wants to participate in cross-country or another athletics or extracurricular, that opportunity is still there. So we want to make sure we know how important it is, and we want to make sure that our students can feel connected. VLO information, all students in Hudson VLO, virtual learning option, are enrolled in our schools. Grades will count for report cards. For the elementary, Hudson Elementary report card will be issued, and high school credit will be granted, and it counts towards your GPA. Scheduled Zoom sessions are mandatory. It is how we account for attendance. The code of conduct still applies for all students, no matter what setting they're in. College Credit Plus classes, we have some students that take College Credit Plus, their high school courses. It's a college course that counts for high school credit at Kent State or the University of Akron, or it could be online through another university also. Those rules still apply. Enrolling in VLO does not kick you out of those CCP classes as long as you've met those requirements to enroll in those in the College Credit Plus classes. I talked to our English department chair, Jackie Hannon, and she is working with Hiram. We do have several courses at our high school that are College Credit Plus courses that are taught by our teachers because they have extra credentials that they could teach a college class. We're working with Hiram to see if they have an online option. So if you're in, there's the 2 English classes, and New Dimensions actually is tied to a humanities class at Hiram, to see if you wouldn't have New D in school, but you could take those classes through Hiram potentially. Those are details that we still need to work out. But if not, there are plenty of English classes in Apex. The pace of the high school and middle school course content will be aligned to the greatest extent as possible. This means we are trying to align that pacing to the semester. And that is still, like I said, we do have some courses already aligned. Some courses would still need to be aligned. VLO information continued. Technology, this has been a question. Students in grades K through 5, no matter where they are, will be issued a Chromebook to take home and use for the school year. Students in grades 6 through 12 will have iPads. Our students entering 6th grade and students entering 10th, 11th, and 12th grade will be issued iPads sometime in later August. Supplies, especially for students in kindergarten through grade 5, will be provided by curriculum resources to support math and language arts. Bridges has several manipulatives that our students need. There are these cool number strings with red and white beads. Those are the things that are essential to students conceptualizing number sense. That would be provided also for students in the virtual learning option. And students in grade 6 or 12 will need a calculator. And I would look toward the supply list, notebook, paper, pencils, pens, all those kinds of things. You're still going to need a learning space, but nothing special. Registration is now open. There's a link to register on August 7th at 5 p.m. And then I wanted to note the semester and the trimester. So if you're a student or a family with a student in grades 6 through 12, semester 1 ends January 14th. And then I believe that's the weekend. So that Monday would start semester 2. And then that commitment would be through the end of the year. Trimester 1 for grades K through 5 is November 24th. And then the second semester is March 8th. So those are the commitments. We will have a re-registration or a recommitment towards that time. We'll be able to adjust if we know anything differently about the virus and how Ohio and our community is responding. Attendance, I mentioned this before, attendance will be taken in Zoom. And 6 through 12, the attendance will be taken in Zoom, and also work completion will count for attendance. We'll follow the Ohio Department of Education guidelines for attendance. And then commitment, families must register by August 7th at 5, and movement between options 1 and 2 will not be permitted after August 7th. When you hear me say, well, those details aren't worked out, it's because we don't understand and we don't know the scope. We don't know if it's going to be 10 kindergartners that choose virtual learning option. Once we know that scope, then we are able to plan about those special items that I talked about, especially electives and world language. And we are looking at different options for world language. I didn't mention that in too much detail. We know that Apex offers world language. It is not up to the par that we would expect. So we are looking for other options for our students in world language, and that would also apply to our 8th graders that are in a language. It might be limited languages, but we are working on that, working with the world language department. We know that we have some work to do on that, and world languages are so important, especially in our society. Again, we are about to enter our question and answer part of the session. And again, we will focus and highlight on the questions that pertain to virtual learning, and then try to get to some questions that may be for the broader sense and the greater good. But we really do want to try to focus on the virtual learning questions. If you do not have your question answered, please email hudsonready@hudson.k12.oh.us. We are using those questions that are coming in and those emails that are coming in to create FAQs that will be posted on the website soon. Your questions are shaping the information that we need to get out to people. So it is much appreciated. Even if you do have your question answered, you can still email it in. So we make sure we're capturing everything, and we are keeping track. We're trying to keep diligent track of the questions that are asked right now. So Mr. Herman.
Yes, thank you, Doreen. So also on the call with us are Kelly Kempf, Director of Pupil Services, and Lisa Hunt, our Director of Human Resources, and they may help in either asking questions or answering questions this morning as we pose those to Mrs. Osmond. The chat is open, so feel free to begin using that. Doreen, to get us started, you may want to stop sharing your screen, and then we can go ahead and get going with the questions. Doreen, first question is, did I understand you correctly? Will my 5th grade student not have specific time with the gifted teacher like you did this last spring? Can you talk again about gifted services in 3 through 5?
Yes, so in gifted service 3 through 5, that the details of that are still being worked out. We feel confident that they would have at least one scheduled time during the week with a gifted intervention specialist, but it would not be for the whole language arts time at this time. And again, that depends on the scope.
This question is not about virtual learning. It's about the option 1 for the all-in option. Will there still be both a full day and a half-day kindergarten? The answer to that is yes, there will still be both.
Doreen, there's a question. My child is a senior. Can they only sign up for the classes needed to graduate?
Yes, but if they're an athlete, we have to watch eligibility.
Well,
no,
not only the classes, they can sign up for other classes beyond that as well.
Right, yes.
So let's answer that one again. My child is a senior. Can he only sign up for the classes needed to graduate?
No, they still have to be a full-time student.
Okay, so the senior, and I'm not sure exactly what the question is, but the senior can sign up for classes needed to graduate plus additional classes.
Yes. Yes. Sorry.
If we commit to going back on the 2nd trimester, can we be assigned a teacher now? My son is in Reach and Gifted, and in the past he was grouped with his peers. How will that be handled when he returns?
That is yet to be determined. We would want students assigned. So middle school students would obviously be assigned to their community. We would try our best to keep them with peers that they know. We always try at the elementary to have at least the students travel with what we call a buddy or within a like peer group, because our students, our gifted students, are clustered into classes.
Doreen, does the VLO option offer half-day kindergarten? And also tell us a little bit about the kindergarten screening process in general.
We do offer half-day kindergarten. There will be half-day kindergarten programming. And it would just look like either the morning chunk of time or the afternoon chunk of time. And there would be no specials for the half-day kindergarten for virtual learning. And Lisa, what was the second question?
Talk to us a little bit about the kindergarten screening process.
So that any kind of screening and any kind of assessment will be a challenge right now. And we are, ODE, Ohio Department of Education, came out with guidelines for the KRA, the Kindergarten Readiness Assessment, which is required right now. We are also working with DIBELS and DRA and different assessment companies to see what can be done virtually. So those are going to be worked out. So the first couple of weeks of school for every student, especially in K-5, that assessment, that pre-assessment piece of it that typically goes on at the beginning of the year will be especially important because we need to understand if there are learning gaps so we can differentiate instruction. We are working on that, though. It will happen for virtual learning. And Lisa, I know this isn't part of the question, but students in the virtual learning option right now are expected to take all of the state tests. And so those are the things that we're working on. Ohio is talking about how do you do that in a virtual environment? Is there an add-on to either the iPad or no matter what operating system that it locks down your browser? We saw AP do it, College Board do it this spring. And so ODE is confident that they can find a provider that would be able to deliver the tests. And that's something that ODE is looking in on and we're paying close attention to.
Thank you.
The next question is, if option 1 moves to all virtual due to the purple level, will there be 2 different VLO systems? So to some extent, yes, the students that are in option 1 will continue with their on a very similar schedule to their daily schedule in school, and will connect with their teachers both synchronously and asynchronously during that period of time in remote learning. Those that are already in the virtual learning option that we are talking about today, they will also continue either in their APEX courses or with their virtual learning option teacher. So all students would be home at that point, but some are doing more of the traditional in-person following their schedule with those same teachers, and others are continuing on their virtual learning option program that they signed up with from the beginning of the semester or trimester.
Maureen, the next question is, where can we collect our supplies, including our computer, Chromebook, or iPad? This particular family has a kindergartner, but that's probably a good general question. If they're doing the virtual learning option, where can they get their tech and any other supplies?
So it'll be closer to the start of the school year, just like with any other student, and that information we need to be mindful of pickup times like we were in, or drop off times as we were in the spring. And we will need to have a specific method of that. So we can socially distance, make sure we're masked, and not mass gatherings either. So that will be communicated much closer for everybody. Because we have the grade levels that I mentioned, 6th grade, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade that need iPads.
The next question, oh, sorry, Kelly, go ahead.
Good. I was just going to say, how will high school seniors be included in events and functions that are more senior specific?
So that's a question that we need to address anyways. We won't have mass gatherings right now. So we are trying to work that out. We're trying to make senior year as special as possible going into this coming school year, trying to make things special. So that is something that we are continuously addressing and thinking of.
But they won't be excluded. They are Hudson City School District students, and they are Hudson seniors, and we will include them in whatever way that looks like.
Doreen, you already talked about assessments. This question says, will there be any assessments such as iReady? So I think you talked about state assessment. Can you talk about some of those more local assessments?
Yes, there will be we will be assessing students. iReady, there's Forefront for Math, there's DIBELS, there's the Fontes and Pinnell benchmark system. It's going to look differently virtually, and we have worked with the vendors because we need the efficacy of the test. So we cannot change we can't change all of the format. So there are pieces and parts of the test virtually that can be administered that will be used for assessment in that important baseline data. So yes, iReady, it'll look, it may look a little different, but the students would log on, take the assessment, and we would get that information. Yes.
Thank you.
Doreen, can you talk again about Spanish for 8th graders? This person says, I missed the mention of Spanish for 8th graders. Can they just enroll in Spanish through CCP or with a high school class?
So Spanish for CCP, CCP requirements require, the colleges require an ACT or an ACT screener to enroll, and those deadlines are passed. You can contact the college to see if they're making any exceptions. So CCP, College Credit Plus Spanish may be a challenge right now. But that is something we are looking at a different way, or really all of our languages. We have 6 at the high school. That how can we have students access at least some world language as possible? And we know that we have students in ASL 3 and ASL 4. What does that look like? And what does Mandarin Chinese look like? So we are trying to figure that out so we can have a world language experience.
Doreen, that question was specific to 8th grade and middle school.
Right.
Is that the same answer?
It is the exact same answer. Middle school Spanish, German, Latin, and Chinese are offered at the middle school. So if your middle school student is enrolled in one of those classes, we will try to find a world language option for them. It is high school credit, that is transcripted credit, meaning it counts for their high school GPA, even though they're in 8th grade. So the same format, the same opportunity for the 8th graders in world language that are scheduled for world language. We'll try to find opportunities for them.
Doreen, will the K-5 Zoom sessions be fully guided by the teacher, or will it require parent assistance? Will the teacher be live the whole time?
It depends on the age level, and it depends on your child. The intention really is there may be some days of what if you were, I don't know what grade level the student is in, but if you were if your child was in our K-5 grouping last year, they typically watched the lesson and then there was interaction. So students may be watching the actual lesson. It may be on fractions, or it may be on addition or subtraction, or counting on, or whatever the lesson is. And then when they're Zooming live, the teacher is talking about those concepts. They're practicing the concept alongside their student in class. Students may be working independently. Oh, you work on this and that, and I'm going to work with this group of students. There are breakout rooms depending on the age level. They're not going to be live for that whole 2-hour chunk of time. There will be breaks, but it may be with the expectation that, okay, in 15 minutes, I'm going to come back, or in 20 minutes, you're going to come back into the session. So working that way, it just depends on your student and how independent they are. Some students need more help. Some students will not need you.
The next question is, it is very disappointing that there was not any live teaching for middle school. Was there consideration to have live teaching for middle school students? We had been leaning towards a virtual until we heard the plan. If we do virtual first semester and then return, how would that work? So we absolutely explored the possibility of live teaching for the middle school. We were exploring, is it possible to stream? And if we do stream, the challenges there are that streaming classes we will try to be doing during the hybrid model, but teachers need to change their instruction in order to stream for students that are home and students that are in class. And we hope that that's not the situation that we're in all year in terms of streaming classes. The other becomes a logistics challenge in regard to the number of students that would be enrolled in the virtual learning option and the teachers that we have available to teach the courses across grade levels, or across grade levels where they switch classes. We simply couldn't commit the number of teacher resources necessary to be able to have teachers live in grades 6 through 12 as they switch courses, and be able to have the necessary resources for the students that are in person. And so I understand that disappointment, and we struggled and wrestled with that in the summer and trying to build options. If a student is in the first semester and then returns after the first semester, they would, Doreen, correct me if I'm wrong, they would enroll in the team that they had been working with during that period of time. So the team that is checking in with them, of teachers that is checking in with them while they're taking the online courses through Apex, they would be placed on that team so that they have the familiarity with and relationships with those teachers already.
Doreen, the next question is, if we register for VLO, do we need to notify busing, or does that happen automatically?
We'll do it automatically. I was talking to Kim Lane at our transportation this morning, and we'll just send her the file. You can opt out, but we will merge those two files.
Doreen, there's a question. So after the first semester, will my child be placed in Tier 1 gifted language arts for middle school, even after doing regular language arts through Apex?
Yeah. Yes.
Similar question to that in terms of H2BE and New Dimensions for high school. If a family does VLO for the first semester and then returns to school second semester, would they still have the option to take those courses?
That's still to be determined.
Someone asked the question about, sorry for the confusion in this question, but is the hybrid option available now through option 1? So option 1 is really choosing to come back in person to Hudson City Schools. And when a student is back in Hudson City Schools, they will attend in whatever model we're in. And the models will change based on the virus and the information, either the color coding levels in our county or the information we're getting from Summit County Public Health and other healthcare providers about the status of the virus. So someone wouldn't necessarily be choosing the hybrid model. They'd be choosing option 1, which could be all in through part of the year. It could be in hybrid, or we could be in remote, depending on the virus. We will move between those as the school year goes on.
And Doreen, there's a question. I have triplets in 3rd grade. Can they all be assigned to the same classroom? And if we transitioned into all in for second semester, would they stay together or be split into different classrooms?
So actually our principals come back on Monday, and we have a list of all of our twins and triplets really through kindergarten through 8th grade. And we will be contacting parents of twins and trips to see if they want them in the same class. So yes, we would make sure they're clustered in the same class.
Well, and actually,
No matter what setting, even if they're in BLO.
They are staying in the same class because of family cohorting. We want
Correct. They're staying in the same. We typically don't do that.
Together, yeah.
We typically don't do that, but this just makes sense. We're trying to cluster our kids together. I'm reading one. Is there a max capacity for VLO? No, there is not.
This question says also, why could there not be teachers in middle school just teaching online courses, just like live instructions? That way children could keep pace with their peers in school with added safety.
Yeah, and I think I answered that one previously in terms of it's a matter of the overarching capacity and the way that the schedules are built within teams at the middle school. If we had so many students enroll in the virtual learning option to create a full team, theoretically we could possibly do that. I don't know that we're going to have that many enroll, and so then that creates really the schedules in a school or in a building are dependent upon one another in terms of how students and teachers are available to serve the students throughout the day. And when we're structured in teams, we ultimately would need something at least close to an entire team's worth to enroll in order to be able to structure it that way.
Doreen, will K-5 students in the VLO program be grouped with one teacher per grade level? And if so, how many kids will be in a class?
Again, that depends on the number of students enrolled. Ideally, it would be by grade level. But there could be situations, it could be a 4-5 split. We just don't know. We don't want 2 kids in a grade level. Doesn't really make sense. We've had there are models, not necessarily here, but really worldwide and in the United States with multi-age. If Montessori does it all the time. So ideally it would be by grade level. And about for elementary, it could be up to about 30 kids or so. And again, that just depends on how many students sign up.
Here's a question. If we are VLO, can we finish the year VLO regardless of the state of the disease? Yes, we're committed to the VLO for the 2020-2021 school year.
Doreen, regarding the math program at K-5, will they still be using the Bridges workbook?
Yep, they'll be using Bridges workbook, and then we purchased from Bridges, from Math Learning Center. We purchased manipulative kits per grade level per child because we wanted to, no matter where students were, we knew students needed it in VLO, but we also know that students are not going to be sharing their Unifix cubes and their blocks and their whiteboards and all that kind of stuff. They'll have individual kits. So we ordered it for all students, no matter where they were. So that's part of that supply pickup that I was talking about earlier. Chromebook, their Math Learning Center box of manipulatives, and then most likely somebody asked me about books. We have some books that we have for students also to read, but we have a lot of online resources, but especially for our little ones, our kindergarten, first and second graders, reading books that we would keep. But as we were cleaning out buildings, I went through all the books that we were going to donate, and I have boxes down here in my office.
Thank you. Kelly, I think this one might be for you. How do we find out who the new case manager will be for my child on an IEP, and what classes we need to sign up for in high school? And then will there still be an option to sign up for the Compass classes if we choose the online option?
Yeah, I will start with the beginning. Once we know the number of students who are signing up for VLO, we'll certainly then determine who case managers are going to be. If there's a large number of students, then we may have a designated teacher. And then again, there's several grade levels. I believe this is for high school, but this would be in any of the grade levels, depending on the number of students, if it's one dedicated teacher per grade level, or in special education, multi-grade level is very common. Actually, the law requires that we keep all kids within 60 months of each other, which is 5 years. We rarely do that. We're able to usually have just a designated teacher per grade level, but you could have a K-1 teacher or a 9-10 teacher or a high school teacher or something like that, but it will depend on the numbers. As soon as we know, we certainly want to have, and our teachers are usually always reaching out to families prior to school starting, introducing themselves, and I'm sure that process will still take place for our students who are in, any of the remote learning that may happen for students with disabilities, but certainly our families who choose VLO get priority of completing those remote learning plans with families. So the special ed teacher is going to be reaching out and scheduling a time with parents and hopefully students, depending on their age, to talk through the remote learning plan and what we learned in the spring, what works, what doesn't work, and how we can adjust their instruction to ensure that in a remote setting, they're able to access their education. So we'll do that with the families prior to school starting as much as possible. Again, it really depends on the numbers, but that's our goal. And then will there be an option to sign up for Compass? I'm thinking maybe that is 6th district, maybe. and if they're online. And Doreen, I don't know if you've had conversation with about that one.
Yes, actually the principals, the high school principals in our 6th district compact and the curriculum directors we are working on providing information and programming. So our 6th district compact students, and this is really our high school kids, juniors and seniors, there will be programming and most likely everyday programming, but the VLO would apply to your core classes. And then the career part of the programming would be at your site.
So you have to be in person for that part.
Yeah, we feel confident. We host auto tech, and we have anywhere between 8 and 12 students, and there's 4 working bays for cars, and so we feel very confident that we can socially distance quite well.
These next 2 questions are related. What is the plan to keep kids distanced during recess and lunch? And will there be multiple classes outside of recess, for example? And then another question, I'm very concerned about the details of the in-school social distancing and safety protocols. Will those details be available before your August 7th deadline so that we can make an informed decision about virtual versus in-school? And so in regard to lunch, our students will have assigned seats during lunch, and we will be utilizing, we'll be modifying lunch schedules. So we will have likely have more lunch periods than we have had in the past, and then we will also utilize some other spaces in the building. It is possible that some students will be eating in their classrooms. We would not be having students in classrooms that have severe allergies eat there, but it's possible that other students, when there's no students with any type of allergy, could be eating in classrooms in order to keep students separated. We're still working on the recess plans. We know that we have to develop them. And in regard to some of the social distancing and safety protocols, we will continue to roll those out over the course of the coming week as those questions are determined and answered. I don't know that all of them will be available by August 7th. Throughout the course of this summer, we've needed to build basically 3 levels of continuum in option 1 for our students to transition from one to the other to the next, and have those schedules be able to work seamlessly, and then build a virtual learning option. Now, as we prepare for some of the more fine-tuned details between now and August 24th, when our teachers return and we begin that professional development, we'll continue to tweak and revise those based on what we continue to hear from Summit County Public Health and what we continue to hear from school districts about the best practice. So some of those answers will be fully available, and we'll continue to update the website and put them in frequently asked questions. And sometimes our principals will be sending and posting plans to explain those over the course of the coming week. But I know that all of them will not be worked out in detail by August 7th. A few nice notes of appreciation in there. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We know that there may still be a few additional questions or things that we didn't touch on. Please feel free to use the Hudson Ready at hudson.k12.ohus email, and we will continue to answer that. And then watch for coming next week, our frequently asked questions page popping up on the website, and we'll continue to update that over and over and over again as we get more of these questions pinned down and answered for you. Thank you for taking the time to and just support your children and invest so much in their education. We are very fortunate in Hudson that so many parents care very deeply, and that's a great thing in working together to educate children. So thanks for taking the time this morning. We appreciate it.